Carol Ivy, and I am very proud to be here to introduce you to one of the women honored in the 1992 Marin Hall of Fame, Women's Hall of Fame. There are lots of halls of fame, but this one is specifically for women. And the woman I'm about to introduce you to is the executive director of the Beryl Buck Institute for Education. She's a very special person, Carolyn Horan, and she's meant a lot to our children, yours and mine, and to children throughout the country. Carolyn, I want to ask you, first of all, what it meant for you to be named one of the women in the Marin Women's Hall of Fame.
It was a very, very great honor. You know, you work and do your things day in and day out, and it never occurs to you that you're different, that you're doing anything special. And when you get a phone call like that that says, we would like to honor you for all the work you've done, it's a very exciting thing to have happen.
But Carolyn, you have done a tremendous amount of work, and women such as yourself should be very proud of what you've done. You were named Educator of the Year one year. Are you telling me you were surprised when that happened? I mean, you worked very hard for that.
I think I was surprised. I truly was surprised, because part of my whole life story, Carol, has been work. In other words, it just comes easy to me to have to work. You have to work for what you get. And if I look at part of who I am today, or what I've accomplished in my life, I guess it's part of the rationale that you've got to really work for what you get. And I've always enjoyed it, so it's not like I look upon work as really, I'm feeling sorry for myself. I've managed to move into jobs that I enjoy. And when you have to work for a living, or want to work for a living, the best thing to do is to do things you enjoy, and then you'll be more productive and you'll be happier.
Now, it wasn't easy for you. Many women start out in a much better position than you. They come from families with money, they go to college, they get their degrees, and maybe eventually they get married and have children. You, on the other hand, had to raise 2 children on your own. And what happened? You went back to school at that point? What happened?
Well, back to school in that I hadn't any college at all. When I was growing up, it was during the Second World War, and my parents both worked, and we moved from North Dakota to Marin County, as a matter of fact.
There's a change.
Yeah, to work. My dad came to work in the shipyards. And I also started working at the age of 13, because that's what you did then. I worked in the theater as an usherette. I worked as a soda jerk. So all those things were pretty natural to me. And it wasn't the expectation of my parents that I would go to college. You know, we really in life do a lot of things that other people expect of us. And if you come from a family that my grandparents and all were farming people, there wasn't that expectation. And it didn't occur to me, even though I really wanted to go to college, it didn't occur to me that maybe I could.
Why did you want to go? At what point in your life?
Because my friends were going.
Really?
Yeah. When I went to high school, the college preparatory courses, I took them without, I think if I would have asked, I really want to go to college, can I do that? But the expectation was that when you graduated from high school, you got a job. You went to work, you got a job, you contributed to the family.
And you were no longer a soda jerk at that point, or an usherette.
No,
what did you do when you graduated from high school?
When I graduated, I did take typing and all those wonderful things that girls take in high school, or did in those days. I graduated in 1949, and I went right into the big city of San Francisco and went to work. And oh, I thought I was so grown up. It was so wonderful to put on high-heel shoes and get dressed up. And so I enjoyed that. And what was interesting, since I guess I went in with an attitude of work is okay, I've always been successful in a job, no matter what the job. At that time, I went to work for an insurance company. And actually, they made me an insurance underwriter, and I was the first woman insurance underwriter in that firm. It was a large fire insurance company on California Street. When I think back on it, the funny part is that they had a meeting, because all the insurance underwriters were men, and they had a meeting asking the guys if it was okay, you know, could they get along with this young woman? And they said yes, they could, so they let me have that job.
Did you know about that?
Afterwards, they told me.
What was your reaction?
Well, that was pretty funny. I thought, you know, really. But at the time, the awareness of women's liberation and all in 1949 was not what it is today. So.
But you were already a pioneer, in other words.
Yeah.
What happened after the insurance job? What happened next?
Well, then I was married then, and I did have 2 children. And basically, I didn't have an unhappy marriage, but after 7 years, well, to tell you the truth, I had 4 children, and 2 of them died, and it was like all I was doing was having children. I felt like I had done what my parents expected of me. You know, getting a job and then getting married and having children.
And going through the tragedy of losing, too.
Yeah, and I felt that there was somebody inside me. I mean, it was like somewhere in here is a Carolyn, and I don't know who it is, and I'm 26 years old.
Very young.
And, you know, what is there? There's got to be more here. And I think that I just made a decision. My husband wanted, his answer was, well, get pregnant again and you'll be happy. And I thought, no, this isn't it.
What did he do? What did he do for a living?
He worked in an office. He was a accounts manager. So he was transferred. And I just said, I'm not going to go.
How difficult a decision was that in those days?
When I made it, it was easy for me. But after I made it, and it was too late to turn back, or I'm pretty stubborn, I wouldn't have turned back. I got things like from the family, oh, nobody in our family ever had divorce. Even if they weren't true, I think you got them. Friends saying, oh, gee, you mean you're going to get out on your own and you're going to take the kids and you're going to take care of yourself? So I don't think that I thought about how difficult it was. I just thought about there's really a lot to life and I've got to get out there and learn what it is and do it. And after I did it, people were kind of pointing out to me that maybe it was difficult.
Were you expected to follow him, do you think?
Oh, sure. Nobody really expects you. As a matter of fact, since it was my choice to do that, you go to a judge, you get a divorce, you go to a judge. The judge said, do you want any alimony? And I said no. And I still remember this part. It was like he was, well, do you think you can take care of yourself? And I said, of course I can take care of myself. And he said, well, won't you take $1 a year so you can change your mind? I'm going, no, I don't want $1 a year. I mean, I've made a decision that I'm going to do something with my life. And
did you take care of yourself, Carolyn?
Well, of course, because I didn't accept the alimony, and I did. I went to work, and with the 2 children, I got a little apartment in South San Francisco, you know, which was not the greatest place to live, but it was a start. And then I realized that I really had to go to college.
You have been very active in education. Mm-hmm. Education is really your thing. Mm-hmm. And you said, I realized I had to go to college. From that moment on, was your focus pretty much on education?
No.
No.
No. I'm the kind of person, I think I'm very realistic. I deal with life as it comes. And I was interested in social welfare at the time. And I thought, good, I'll go to work and get a social welfare degree, and I'll have this wonderful career. So I had to take a day off work to go to San Francisco State to register. I didn't know anything about college, and there was this big process where you go and sign up for classes. I signed up for 2 classes. Now, mind you, I'm going to take these at night while working all day and taking care of the kids, or, you know, at night. And you had to go to a counselor and get that counselor to approve. So I took this, I'll never forget this, I took this as counselor and I handed it to him, and I was 27 at the time. And he said, well, you're going to take 2 courses? And I said, yes. He said, do you have any other college? I said, no. He said, what do you intend to do with this? I said, well, I intend to get a degree. I intend to graduate. And he says, what makes you think you can graduate doing it? Now, this is the counselor. And it made me so angry. I looked at him and I said, I'm going to tell you something. If I had started going to night school the day I graduated from high school, I'd be graduating from college today.
And what did he say then?
He signed it. But the sad part is it did take me 10 years. It was 10 years, and it wasn't, talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, I didn't deliberately take 10 years to finish, but it did take 10 years.
Did you ever work in social welfare, or what happened?
Well,
we all start in college with these ideas of what we want to do, and somehow it changes.
It changes. No, I didn't work in social welfare, but in the course of this 10 years, having a BA in social welfare was no different than what I was doing. It was a clerical job. and I realized that I had to go on for a master's. And at that time, there was a master's program in rehabilitation counseling, and I got involved in that, and I've always listened to people. I'm learning all the time. I guess that's where I started really getting into education, because you just can learn every day from everybody that's around you. And in the cafeteria or whatever, I would hear, oh, if you do this and so, you can get a credential for this. And somebody said if you get a placement in an educational setting and take so many units of pupil personnel, you can get a credential. And I thought, okay, another ticket, you know, who knows what I'm going to do. And that's when I did that. And when I graduated with my master's, lo and behold, there's a job offer for the Marin County Office of Education. And what did they need? They needed a pupil personnel credential. And guess who had one? Me, because I had done that little extra thing, even though my master's was in rehabilitation counseling.
When you realized that was available, did you think, well, I'm finally the right person in the right place at the right time? Or did you say to yourself, Carolyn Horan, you have worked hard for this and you deserve it?
I think it was a great opportunity, and I realized this was a good job. You see, all those 10 years weren't lost just because I hadn't been in education. I had been doing other things, and I had an insurance background. I was successful in business. While I was going to school, I then remarried and had another child during this process. But I worked at a recreation center. I was a recreation director because I could work at night and Saturdays. And I realized that I had a lot to offer. So by the time I came to the education scene, and by the time I interviewed for that job, I was very confident. I felt that I had a lot to offer. You see, I worked for the County Office of Education then for 17 years, I guess, 18 years. And I quit that job to take this job, which is really developing a whole new research institute for education. It's a marvelous opportunity. Where else would I get an opportunity like this? You can't turn something like that down.
What's it like for you?
Oh, it's very exciting because I'm learning something new. I'm learning research, and I'm learning more about the whole world of education and not just the Marin County. And I'm learning how to bring the good research that's out there in the universities, the things that we've found out that really work for students. The problem is there's a big gap between that world and the classroom. And I'm a very practical person. And my whole thing is, if you're going to change things, if you're going to change things in education, which we all agree that there needs to be some change, education is 99 9/10% people. And you cannot just make policy and make things change. You deal with people. So how do you get these good things that were done over here by the researchers, who in many cases don't know how to talk to other people except other researchers, right? Into the classroom where the teacher's working with those 30 kids every hour, every 5 days a week. Education bashing is very popular. Right now, the hot mud is to say, well, you should be more like business and industry, and we'll show you how to run things. Kids are not widgets, and you have to look at the human factor and look at some of the businesses that are failing and look at some of the organizations throughout our society that's failing. So if a teacher did that, they could stop and say, well, wait a minute, I'm not going to listen to all this bashing. But what we need to do is get together and take the business person who thinks they have all the answers and say, great, come on in and share those with me. And get the teacher to say, okay, I'm not going to keep you from this because you're a threat to me, but let's get together and we're going to both learn more. We're going to both learn more. And so that's, I guess, it's a low point in education, but wouldn't it have been kind of boring if we were in education when everything was going well? I mean, this is a great opportunity, again, to show some leadership.
You went from a 27-year-old woman who was almost intimidated by a man in the system to a woman who can control things, including men.
Wonderful.
Do you think education has empowered you in that regard?
Oh, yeah. But education is more than just your formal education. I'm 60 years old now. And when I had my 60th birthday, I had a big birthday party and invited 100 and some people, and I asked them all to bring an unwrapped gift. and to take me into my second childhood, right? And then we gave these toys to the kids in the canal area. But the thing that happened besides that, of being 60, was, you're 60, you're kind of on the downhill run. And I realized that you have a whole lot of history, you've done a lot of things in your life, and you're wise. And so I feel wise. I feel like I want to share wisdom, and I feel like if you ask me something, that I really do have something to offer you. And part of it is what I learned, and part of it was what I experienced, and part of it is what I think could happen.
Well, you're not on the downhill side. Not only do you have an incredible amount of energy, you're also a very beautiful woman.
Oh, thank you.
Do you look forward to the next, I'd say, backside of your life? If you you say downhill, I say backside of my life.
Oh, I do, definitely. Oh, yeah. This is not the end. I already have a couple ideas of what to do next. And you know, if I look forward to that, because I expect that I will be living for another 20 years and I will be involved, and I've got some ideas of how to make things even better in education when I finish this. But I look back also on what made me wise. What a wonderful time I've lived, because I've lived in an era where, as a child, in the summer I spent on the farm with my grandparents, and I'm talking about a farm in North Dakota that had no running water, that had no electricity, and that was a way of life. And my aunt would bake bread, even if it's 110 degrees, you know, twice a week. And to be able to have experienced that through today, think about it, it's wonderful.
Do you see parents trying to do too much for their children, parents trying to put expectations on children who perhaps don't have the learning abilities?
I see it to the point where I think that there's some of them destroying their children at a very early age. I see it to the point where when parents expect their kids to be Harvard or Yale or Princeton and they're not in kindergarten yet, I see it a lot, and that goes back to this great opportunity I have in the Burroughs Buck Institute for Education, and that's one of the other projects. We talked earlier about the gender differences. This is one of our major projects, is looking at that. And you know...
What are you finding?
Oh, we're finding that kids are burned out by the time they're in the 3rd grade. We know in research, you see, we know so much. If we'd only look and listen to ourselves once in a while, we know in research that, yes, you can do this Head Start kind of idea. I mean, Head Start started out as a national program to help those kids who really didn't have an opportunity to read or anything. Well, the Middle America and upper class America kind of got this idea, well, I want to give my child a Head Start. To them, Head Start is making them, being able to read by the time they're in kindergarten, be able to write. And what they've done is actually push their kids academically, and what they've pushed out of their lives is what we learn by playing. And therefore, in research, and I can give you all kinds of data, which I'm sure you're not asking for, that we can prove that kids, by the time they're in the 3rd grade, they're turned off to learning.
How do we turn that around, Carolyn?
We turn around our early childhood education programs, and we tell our parents, well, we have to help the parents understand, when you walk into the classroom and you see your kids playing and learning and sharing and all, they are learning to read. You say, well, why aren't you teaching my daughter how to read? We have to learn, we have to be able to say, the teachers have the confidence to say, oh, I am, let me show you what she wrote today, even if it's a picture. So it's a process of helping people understand what's really important in educating children, and we got off track on that.
What about playtime for Carolyn Horan? You're doing all these. You said we have to remember play. Yeah. I mean, do you have time to yourself? You do so many unbelievable, incredible things.
Well, I do things in spurts. Well, not in spurts. Well, here's one. So what have I done? I decided to learn to ski at some point in my life, and I did actually go skiing this year.
How did it go?
My legs were so tight. I got the bottom of that hill. I thought I was going to die. But anyway, I made it. At one point, I decided to sail, and I did sail and I raced, and I was a skipper of my own boat. But when you do things like that, you have to do them a lot, and I do still play tennis. But to me now, at this stage, since I've done all those things, play for me is, a lot of it is enjoying my work. I have to admit, I really enjoy what I'm doing.
And you've come to the point that you can do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to prove yourself to anybody.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice? Is that nice?
That's great. It is nice. I mean, two breakthroughs in my life. One was probably in my early 30s when I was willing to admit that I had prestige needs. When I say when I was willing to admit it, not just to myself, but be able to say, I do want to make something of it. I didn't have to be humble about wanting to make something of myself. And I was able to say, yes, I do want to be important. Yes, I do want to accomplish something. Yes, I do want to be successful. Therefore, when people said to me, why are you doing this? Why are you going to night school? Why aren't you taking care of your husband? Why aren't you fixing coffee? Why? Because Carolyn has to be a person. So that was one thing. And the second thing is now, I guess, what you're just saying, that I can kind of bask in it a little bit. Be wise. I am wise.
Since you've been executive director of the Barrel Buck Institute, what kinds of things have been education for you? You said you continue to educate yourself through various ways. Are there things other than just the interaction with people that are new to you since you?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This opportunity to start this new nonprofit organization is pretty interesting, and I have learned enough about starting a new organization that I could, and I'm serious about this, people say write a book. I mean, I seriously could, because I've learned that there are certain things that anything goes through, whether you're a kid growing up or people getting married and adjusting to each other, starting a new business, be it nonprofit or be it for-profit, there's a process that you go through of growth. Also, you know, I have a board, we have advisory committees. I've learned a lot, and I was able to also accept where I made the mistakes. In other words, so mistakes are good things to do. If we didn't make mistakes, we'd never do better things. So I mean, I could say, you know, this is where I made a major mistake in the development of this, because here's what it caused. It put us back here, there. Therefore, if I were going to give you advice, that's why I can be wise. Don't do that piece. But that's how we learn. That's how we grow. And that's what we need to do in education. We need to let kids make mistakes and try things out and grow and not be so hung up with this perfection all the time.
Women traditionally have not been manipulators of people. And yet, maybe we've been sort of below the surface manipulators of people.
Yeah.
How difficult has it been for you as a person in power, like the director of the Institute, to learn when you have to manipulate people?
I think that was probably one of the first lessons I learned when I got into education, and that we're going back 20 years. And the difficulty was accepting the fact that it was political. In other words, it was like, it took me about a year to realize that you just couldn't blithely go in with a good idea and say, I'm going to do this, that there were rules and laws and regulations and boards. And once I learned, whoa, this is very political here.
Did it drive you crazy at first?
Friends of mine said, you won't last. They said, you won't, because I would come home screaming and yelling. They said, you'll never last. But I learned how, I'm very manipulative now. I mean, I can manipulate the system because that's what it takes to get things done. And that's part of, another thing of me saying to you, to be able to say those things out front is what gives you the strength. You know, you don't have to hide it. Yes, I can manipulate the system. I'm very good at that. I've learned it. I've learned it from experts because I've watched the people, men and women, who've been my mentors. If there's anything I really take seriously, it's mentoring other people. Because a lot of people have asked me throughout this process of this Hall of Fame, who was your biggest mentor, or what, you know, did any woman make an impression in your life? And I have to honestly say there was no one person. There were a lot of people. And the people were women and men. And they were people who showed me things, who knew if I really wanted to learn that they'd help me. There were a lot of men that put me down as not, you know, particularly when you're younger, when you're in your 20s. I think that happens a lot. But I take that very seriously, and I do it daily. On my job, I don't tell everybody what to do, but I try and be a leader, and I try and mentor them.
Can you still be feminine, I'm going to use that word, in a sense that means a lot of different things. Can you still be feminine and be a power person and manipulate the system?
I think so. I think so because to me feminism is being a real personism. In other words, I have as many female friends as I do male friends, or I could turn that around. I have as many male friends as I do female friends. I feel that I've always been able to relate to people as a woman. I don't want to be a man. I'm perfectly happy being a woman. I have a lot to contribute as a woman. And I have all the attributes of an attractive woman. I like to flirt and dance and all those things. But I'm also very bright, and don't forget that. And I'm also very competent, and I don't want to be put down based on gender. But I don't want to be shunned based on the fact that I can accomplish things and that maybe I have some brains. So, yeah.
Next big goal.
Next big goal.
And we're going to look back and see whether this happened.
The next big goal is going to be a hard one because there's going to be a time when I'm going to have to leave the Burl Buck Institute for Education. So I wouldn't have to leave because of age, because it's a kind of job that you could be really old and get smarter and smarter. But if I do my job right, the kind of person it takes to start something like this is not necessarily the kind of person it takes to make it grow in the direction it needs to. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And the day's going to come that I'm going to have to look and say, okay, I have done all Carolyn Horan can do to make this a good, solid organization. I have a goal of saying that we are going to be very reputable, very credible, we're going to be frugal, and we're going to be have a good reputation. Everything we do is going to be good. And I'm reaching that goal. I'm very proud of that. But there's a time coming, Carol, that I'm going to have to say, okay, I've done all those things. Everything that I have to contribute has been given, and it's time for someone else with a new idea to come along, and I'm going to have to move on. And that's going to be hard. But I got a plan.